What's going on YouTube? WestHobbiesRC. So today we are back with the Goosky RS7 part 3. We will get it finished up in this part. So what we have to do is just mount our flybarless unit, our receiver, which we will use a SRXL2, our satellite, and start wiring it. But I'm going to do a little bit of modification here to fit my 2S LiPo because I'm running a non-BEC and Opto ESC. So we're gonna go ahead, get our flybarless mounted, start wiring this up. I'm gonna pull this back out, show you what I'm gonna do here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get started. So we are gonna be using an Icon 2 HD for now. And the reason we're using an HD is because we are running a separate 2S LiPo. So our Icon or your flybarless unit, whichever one you are using, is going to sit in here. So I'm gonna take into consideration my side port so I can use a remote USB. I'm gonna mount it just like this and it's gonna go right here. That'll give us just enough room for our wires. There isn't a ton of room right here between the frame side and the FBL unit. That'll give us room right here to put our SRXL2 so our antennas can go down and out around the boom. So I'm gonna wipe this area off with rubbing alcohol, double side tape down our Icon, get that mounted, then we can start figuring out the wiring. It'll be pretty simple on this one. For the throttle, I'm gonna take it out of this sheeting here, and we are just gonna come out and go along here and try to pass through right in between this servo and the carbon fiber frame side, and all of our wires can tuck back real nice and neat into our flybarless unit. I got the Icon mounted and the SRXL2 mounted. I am printing an antenna holder, so my antennas will go down and out. I decided to go to an antenna SRXL2, not antennaless on this model, and I'm also running a DSMX satellite, which will go down on the lower frame side, probably under the tail servo or on this side. So my plan on the wiring is very simple on this model. We don't have telemetry, any of that right now until the new ESC gets here and the new V-bar gets here. So this is just a temporary setup. And then my HD port, I'm gonna have some wire that'll go from here and run along this side of the frame up to where my 2S LiPo will be. So I'm actually going to get this pulled out now and get my new mount put on. So my idea is I copied a SAB battery holder. I cut it on the CNC, and this is going to go into here just like this. I'm going to take this mount out, drill 2 or 4 new holes, and that is going to get spaced up and leave me enough room for a strap under the battery. That way my 2S LiPo will fit right here, be nice and clean. So here is the idea that I came up with. This is the bottom mount for the ESC. I took it all apart. So I am going to be changing this again in the future, but I wanted something that was secured and I didn't want to have a bunch of random holes. I only had to drill 2 holes in this bottom plate. I was able to have enough thread into here to have 2 little tiny screws. So I ended up countersinking all 4 holes because I copied the SAB one, but I needed to do this. So I'm going to rewrite the file, make a new one. But these 2 holes are going to go here. It is going to screw down, and then I'm going to use 2 on each side of these little brass spacers that come with SAB kits with 2 of these countersunk screws that'll go through, space it up. This will be bolted solid with a short nut on the bottom side, so everything should clear. So let me get this all assembled and we'll see what it looks like. And this is what it looks like all finished up. So if I really wanted to, I could cut another one without these 2 back holes and just move them to here, because original plan was to run 4 through bolts, but this ended up working better. I have 2 spacers on each side here, and then a nut on the back side. Cut the screws off to keep it as thin as possible because we have to have some clearance for the battery to slide in and out. So now let's get this thrown back on the helicopter, see how it looks. And the reason for this spacing is so we can run a Velcro strap around, and our 2S LiPo battery will go here since this is all open. And there it is, mounted all back up. So now our 2-cell LiPo battery will slide right in just like this. Run a Velcro strap around it. It is nice out of the way. And then on this side, we will run our HD power port, which I just soldered some long 16 gauge wire. So it'll plug into the back here, wrap around, come across right to our XD60 to power our servos. So I'm gonna get this covered in heat shrink and get it routed, and we'll see how it looks. Got it all soldered up. So we go from our HD port. It is ran in between the Icon and the frame. We'll put a nice zip tie right here to hold it. It runs in between the servo, comes out here, comes down, and now we can plug our 2S LiPo to power our servos. Now on to wiring up our cyclic and our tail, and I also got my 3D printed antenna mount on the boom. So our SRXL2 is mounted and already ran. So now let's start wiring up the cyclic servos. Now let's get to wiring up our servos and ESC. So on this model with this swash layout, servo layout to your icon. Number 1 servo is your front right servo. Number 2 is your back elevator servo, and number 3 is your front left servo. So that is how we are going to go into the icon, servo 1, 2, and 3. And of course, servo 4 is your tail servo, which is just wired right here. And channel 1 is your throttle. And then for SRXL2, you go to channel 3, and then telemetry is 5 of the 4, 5, 6 port, but we don't have telemetry right now. We are not going to do a crazy wiring like I normally do. I am going to cut and shorten these servos because we are going to leave these servos in this model. We're just going to be changing ESC motor and FBL unit later on. So we're just going to give us a little extra room here so we can reroute wires after the new flat barless unit gets installed. And I'm going to make up an extension to go from channel 1 to over here so we can plug our castle in and out, and I can unplug it for programming. So let's go ahead and start cutting and shortening wires. We got our cyclic servos and our throttle cable made up. Our plug is going to be right here. It kind of fell in, but it's going to be right there. So our ESC lead will plug in right behind our servo, little double-sided tape so I can unplug and plug it if need be. So now that all that is done, now we just need to figure out a way to route the tail servo wire, which I think I'm going to come up and in between the boom and the frame side, and then come right into channel 4 right here, or servo 4. And then we mount our SRXL2. I'm going to put a couple zip ties to hold all this main harness right here into place. Again, this is just a temporary wiring. Whenever we get all the new components, I just want to get this thing flying, get some flights on it, then I'll switch it over and wire it up even better. So let's get that tail servo done and figure out somewhere to put the DSMX satellite. Now we are done with the wiring. It's about as neat as it's gonna get for now. Wiring on this model definitely ain't the easiest. One thing I do recommend if you want to get a cleaner wiring is to route your wires on the inside of the frame. There's enough room to try to get them all hidden, especially your ESC wire, but that involves taking a frame side off. And maybe whenever I put the new hobby wing, I will route them this way, but everything is done. The tail servo goes in between the boom and the frame. It was tight, but it got in there. I put a piece of heat shrink over it so that way it can't shave on the carbon fiber. And then I also put a piece of Velcro, which is very hard to see, right down in there, and put a zip tie so that way it does not get, the wires don't get cut up. So now I gotta mount the DSMX satellite. Wiring is completed, and then we can throw the blades on this thing and see what it looks like. When installing your main blades, you have a few different shims that come in the box. So this style shim here is going to push in into the blade grip bolt hole, and you're going to do the same on the bottom shim. Now you also get a shim like this, which is going to go depending on the blades. We are running the AZ700s, so I just checked, and I'm going to have to use one of these shims and these shims together to make the space up in the blade, but also just remember and double check if your bolts fit through here. So you're gonna wanna do one shim just like this, push it into place, put your second shim in, and then your smaller shims go in between that for the blade grip. So once you get the shims in, it'll look just like this. So you'll have 2 on top, 2 on bottom. That is one thing I honestly do not like. I do not like that you have to use 2 shims to put the blades in the blade grip. Something I wish that Goosky would have changed, but let's get the other main blade on. Both blades are on, and again, shimmed top to bottom on both blade grips. Also remember on your tail, you want to put a shim on each side of that as well. So the blades are on. Let's put the canopy grommets in. It's all wired up. DSMX satellite there, SRXL2 there. We got our HD port power wire running all the way up to our 2S LiPo, which we put our little tray in. You just got to put a strap on it. There's our connection. Battery tray is in it. So let's get the canopy grommets on and see what this thing looks like. And the canopy is on. One thing I wanted to touch on, make sure you put these body clips in the canopy posts. there has been issues with backwards flying and the canopy ripping off. So it's just nice to put the clips in, they give them to you, they're there. Canopy quality looks great. I'm not happy with mine has a bulge out right here. You can really see it like this, but it'll have to do. So there is the Goosky RS7 build series. It is all finished up. Just have to set the flybarless unit up and throw the batteries in it and go fly it. Everything came out perfect. My 2S LiPo came out perfect. I can come in from this side, plug my battery right there as I plug my main flight pack in. Helicopter is super lightweight. On the overview video, we'll get about weights on it for everybody. Antenna mount came out perfect. Antennas are down and out. The DSMX antenna is right there. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this build series. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Remember, Patreon and PayPal are linked in every video description if you'd like to help support me. And Super Thanks is now on if you would like to hit that. Take care and have a great day.